Uh, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the last few sessions, we looked at how to create associations, how to create navigation properties, how to, let's say if we are reading an entity, how to get its associated entities and all, right?
Hmm.
So that's how far we got. Today we are going to see how to expand. I mean, there are different kinds. Let's say if you see this SAP help, um, basically let's say if you are requesting an entity. So far what we have done is, I mean, we got all the associated entities for that entity. Let's say if we have a sales order, we got all the sales order items associated with that sales order entity. But let's say if we wanted to get both of them at one time, let's say if we wanted to display sales order and sales order items, if we wanted to read sales order and sales order items at one point of time. Okay, so how to do it? In order to, I mean, do it, I mean, there are two ways to do it. One is, I mean, basically it is called expand query option. In order to achieve it, there are two ways. One, we don't need to do anything. Framework provides the framework expand option, where let's say I will show you. Let's say if I wanted to get uh, all the sales orders and all of its sales order items, this is how I request it. Let's say if I wanted to see sales orders and its associated sales order items, this is how I request it. This is the entity set. Okay. This is the entity set, and you are just going to say expand equal to navigation property on the corresponding entity. Let's see what happens, right? Let's say I'm going to request the response data in the JSON format, so I will add another query option format equal to JSON. So what it does is, I mean, this is a big JSON file. So it starts with curly braces. I mean, it indicates that it is a JSON object. Inside you have D, key D. It is the total payload, and inside you have an array of objects. So in JSON, I mean, the array of objects is represented by square brackets. Okay. So if you look at it, I mean, you will see the sales order, and I mean, if you look at the navigation property is expanded, and you will see the corresponding sales order items. I mean, sales order item 10, sales order item 20, sales order item 30, sales order item 40, so on, uh, and it will have sales order ID 5, I mean 5 lakh 1 or 5 million 1, something like that, and the corresponding sales order IDs and all you will get, I mean, all those details. We haven't done anything actually. I mean, we have just added a expand query option to the sales orders, okay, by requesting expand the order to items too. let's see what happens in the back end. Okay. This is my sales orders get entity set. So instead of, let's say, for to explain it simply, I'm just requesting only 3 instead of 100 sales orders. Okay. I'm just requesting 3. Okay. Let's keep a breakpoint here. Okay. And since I am requesting sales order items also, I'm going to keep a breakpoint here too. Okay, let me run the query again. So it comes to the sales orders underscore get entity set method. Okay. So this method is called. Okay, so let's just execute this one. So after the sales orders underscore get entity set method is called, it comes to the sales order items underscore get entity method. And if you see, if we look at the sales order ID, right? If we look at the sales order ID, it is 5 million or something like that. With sales order ID. So let's just say continue, right? So it gets the sales order items for that sales order. Let's just continue. So it comes again for this. It comes again to this method. Now with the different sales order. With, let's see the sales order ID this time. Okay. If you look at the sales order ID, now it calls with the sales order ID 5,000,001. Okay, so let's continue. Now it gets the sales order items for the sales order 5,000,001. Let's just say continue. It comes to this method again. Now with the other sales order ID. Now if we look at the sales order ID, it is 5,000,002. Okay. Okay. Now if we continue, right? So how many number of sales order IDs we requested initially?
3.
3, right? So
Yeah.
first it get 3 sales order IDs. next it called the sales order items underscore get entity set method 3 times, each time with the corresponding sales order ID. So what it is doing is, first it will get the sales orders, and for each sales order in the sales orders get entity set, it is going to call the sales order items underscore get entity set method, and it get the corresponding sales order items. Okay.
Okay.
So if we look at it, it get the first sales order ID and it get the corresponding sales order items. Okay. So it get the second sales order ID. So it get the second sales order ID and it get the corresponding sales order items. So if you look at it, this is the second sales order. Okay. So if you look at it, the navigation property is expanded with the results in it. Okay.
Okay.
So we did not do anything, to expand, to expand an entity and its corresponding associated entities. This is called framework expand. The framework automatically provides you this functionality. But you looked at it, right? It is going, let's say if you have 100 sales orders, it is going to call the sales order items underscore get entity set method 100 times for each sales order existed in the sales orders entity set. Sometimes it might not be, too good in terms of performance. So we will look at the other kind of expand, that is called the data provider um, class, data provider expand. But in order to do that, we got to write implementation in it. Okay. So similarly, before we go to that, similarly, let's say if we wanted to look at, I don't want to expand for all the sales orders. I just want to expand it for a one sales order. Okay, let's say if I do this, right? So instead of the sales orders entity set, I'm just requesting one sales order, and I'm requesting for its associated entities, sales order item entities. Okay. So it says that sales order underscore method sales orders underscore get entity not implemented in the data provider class. Do you know, why it throw the error message?
because the get entity is not implemented.
Yeah, so far we have just implemented sales orders underscore get entity set. We have implemented sales order items underscore get entity set, and we have implemented products underscore get entity. Okay, let's just go ahead and implement the sales orders underscore get entity method. Okay, so before I implement, without writing any code, I just want to show you what kind of details you get these input in these input parameters. Okay. Let's execute that method again. Okay. The entity name is sales order. The entity set name is sales order items. The source is also sales order. In the IT key tab, we received the sales order that we are requesting for. Okay. sorry. And in the navigation path, I did not receive anything. Okay. So let me just read it from the IT key tab, the sales order ID, and I'm going to give the that sales order header back. Okay. So there is a function module which we can use BAPI underscore EPM underscore SO underscore get detail. So in it we are going to get the sales order header data and sales order item details, but since we are not interested in this method about sales order items, we are just going to receive the sales order header data and just pass it back to the user. Okay. Okay, what I will do is local data definitions. ls key tab type. We will take the line type. Okay. This has a name and value page. Okay. And we will look at the function module. We will look at the corresponding function module so we know how to define our local data. Okay. This is the ID. Okay. ID type, this one, and for the sales order header data we will look at the structure. Okay. Read IT key tab. Right. Read table IT underscore key tab into ls key tab with key name equal to the property name of the key, SOID. Okay. If ls key tab is not initial, You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. If ls key tab is not initial, um, we are going to call this function. Okay. Conversion exit alpha input. Okay. ls key tab. Hyphen value. We are going to receive in it. Okay. ls SOID. This function module will just fill the leading spaces with zeros. Okay, since the function module that we are calling expects that. Okay, so we are just formatting the input data. Okay, now we call the corresponding function module. We will pass this. We are not going to request any item data. Okay, if ls header is not initial, move corresponding ls header to ER entity. This is what we are returning. We are actually returning an entity, sales order entity, right? Okay, entity, which is of type sales order. Okay, we know, if there is no sales order ID with the information user passed, we are just going to raise a business exception with message saying that, hey, we don't have a sales order information with the ID you sent. Okay, so as we have discussed it, I am not reiterating it and I am not writing the error messages here, but whenever you do a productive OData service, you got to take consideration into all the scenarios where there could be errors, and you are going to throw that error messages back to the user so that the user can correct it and submit their request again. Okay, so let me save it and let me check the syntax. Okay, everything looks good. Okay, do we need to implement a sales order items underscore get entity method too?
No,
Why?
because we are not requesting one item. We are requesting all the items for that sales order.
Yeah, that is, I mean,
We
so
are just expanding order to items only.
yeah, I mean, even in the case of sales orders entity set or a sales order entity, there is, I mean, the number of sales order items going to be is always multiple or plural. So that is the reason we don't need to implement sales order items underscore get entity method. Okay. So the reason that we are implementing sales orders underscore get entity method is we are trying to expand sales order items related to a sales order. This one, I mean 5,030,000 or something. So initially when we requested sales orders entity set and its corresponding sales order items, then we don't need sales orders underscore get entity method because we are hitting sales orders underscore get entity set method, and for each sales order in the sales order entity set we are going to request the corresponding sales order items. Okay. So since we implemented this method, I mean let me keep a breakpoint. Okay. Let me keep a breakpoint here so that we know what is the, I mean, what methods are going to be executed. Okay. So, I mean, most of the times we are not going to expand, I mean, entity set and its corresponding entities, associated entities. Most of the times we are just, I mean, requesting an entity and requesting for its associated entities. So most of the times this is what you are going to do. Okay. So now it comes to the sales orders underscore get entity method. Okay. So it got the corresponding sales order entity. Okay. Let me continue it. So it hit the sales order items underscore get entity set method. Let's look at what is the sales order ID. Okay. This is the sales order ID we passed. Okay. So it just requests. So it just gives you one sales order details and its corresponding sales order items. I mean, you got to look at what place the sales order items are displayed. Okay. I mean, what we are expanding is the navigation property on the sales order ID, sales order entity. So in the order to items, I mean, since it is multiple sales order items, it is going to be an array of sales order items objects. Okay. So it displayed the sales order item 10, it displayed the sales order item 20, so its corresponding metadata, so on. Okay. This is how you request uh, sales order items, I mean sales order items corresponding to a sales order. Okay. So in both the cases, let's look at um, performance statistics. Okay. Sometimes I mean the framework expand is not that optimal, so most of the times it may take a lot of time, I mean for processing, since it is I mean not optimized, right? I mean it gives you the results with no problem, but sometimes it might take a lot of time. That's why we got to see what are all the other options even if we write code. Okay. So first I will look at what is the time taken if I request 3 sales orders and its corresponding or associated entities. Okay. Sorry, I mean I'm going to take the breakpoints, otherwise it don't give you proper performance statistics. Okay, let me execute one more time. So when it executed, now you will see two different requests. Okay, you will take the recent one so that you will get better results. Okay, so these are the we discussed about IWFND slash traces. This is where we can with a user or with a corresponding URL, you can enable trace and you can see performance trace and payload trace. Here we are just okay, the total amount of time it took. Takes. Okay, let me increase the number of sales order items, sales orders, so that if there are more in number, let's see what it gives me. Let's say let's request for 20. Okay. Okay, now a request for 20 sales orders and its corresponding sales order items. Okay, let's look at the performance statistics again. So this is the latest one that I requested. So this is the timing. Okay. So this is the gateway total. So this is the gateway hub. This is RFCOH, RFC and network overhead. This is gateway backend. This is gateway app. Okay. It's actually how do you calculate this one is sometimes it give you these negatives. Okay. This is 2249 minus 1075 plus 62 plus 12. This is 74. If you add, this is 74. If you take 74 from 75, it is 1011. 2249 minus 1011, it is approximately, it is 1248. Okay, that's how you calculate it. Okay, so basically you take into consideration this gateway total. This is the amount of time it took to get 20 sales orders and its corresponding sales order items. Okay, let's see whether we really got how many how many sales orders we, yeah, we got, I mean, it starts with 5 million and it ends with 5 million and 19. So we got 20 sales orders and its corresponding sales order items. Okay. So uh, this is how you request. Okay, one second. Let me take the performance statistics for a single one. When I request one sales order and its corresponding sales order items. So let's look at the performance statistics. It will be less. Okay. So this is the timing 6:36. Those many number of milliseconds it took. Okay. So now we will look at what is the data provider expand. I mean, how to implement it. Okay. So first, let me go to the data provider class extension. If you go to the data provider class extension, there are a couple of methods you need to implement. Okay. This is the method. If you wanted to write custom implementations for the entity set, expanded entity set, this is the method that you wanted to implement, get expanded entity set. Okay. Let's say if you wanted to do it for one single entity, you want to implement, write custom implementation for this method. But before we implement, let's see what is the let's see the data. How do you, how do you pass the data? Sorry, just okay. Expand equal to order to items. And since we are requesting the data in the JSON format, I am going to say format equal to JSON. Okay. So if you look at it, we are going to give all the sales order details And I mean on the sales order entity you have a navigation property called order to items. Okay, this is the navigation property which take you from sales order to sales order items entity set. So in the order to items, if you expand it, this is a JSON object, okay, where you will receive all the corresponding sales order items. So your data structure should contain, okay, the all the sales order details, and I mean apart from that you will have order to items, the navigation property, and in it the order to items is a table of sales order items. Okay, one second guys. Your data type should look like, okay, header, and you should have items type table of sales order item. Okay, so I mean your data structure should contain all the attributes of your sales order header information, and you should have I mean a table of type sales order item. Okay, this is how you should send back the information. Okay, so similarly if you are trying to get an entity set and its corresponding entities, then you just take out this key and you will get all the corresponding sales orders and corresponding sales order items. So I mean even this one it looks like same. You will give the sales order ID and the order to items is expanded to include all the sales order items. Okay. So first I am going to implement this expanded entity set. Okay. I'm just going to expand it. First I am going to declare my data structure. Okay. Um, what I will do is data. I'm going to define a data type, define a data object big enough, expand sales order. Okay. It is a say end of that data object. Okay, and in it I'm going to include the sales order. I'm going to include the sales order header type. Okay, we go to just say sales order. Okay, and you will say another data, another table, like you got to say, I mean, this name should be equivalent to the navigation property that you mentioned on the entity. So the navigation property is order to items. This should be same, okay? Order to items, type, table of, okay? TS sales order item, okay? This is the data structure that I wanted to send. I mean, it includes the sales order header information, and I mean, it should have a order to items property, which is of type table of the sales order items. Okay. Any questions, guys?
No.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I mean, initially I'm going to get the sales orders. Okay. Since we are requesting, I mean, 20 sales orders. Okay. Let me copy the code.
The declaration of the sales order item structure, should not that also have the class before it?
What is that?
That
What is?
TH sales order item, should not that
Yeah.
also have?
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, it don't recognize, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me copy the data from this one. Okay. Let me declare all the data types necessary. Okay. Data ls header type. Okay. Ls header is of type this one. Similarly, I'm just going to say lt header type table of. Okay. So even this EPM underscore S4 underscore get list will give you the get list will give you the items too. So in the tables you will get the S4 item data too. So you can read all of them at one time. Item data. Okay. So I'm going to do data ls item type, which is of SAP ESO item. Okay. Data lt item type table of this one. Okay. So once I get the data, lt header. Okay. Okay, I'm going to loop at this header ls header. Okay. What I will do is this data structure that we wanted to send, I'm going to so I'm going to create a table of this structure and structure of also this structure. Okay. lt expand sales order. Since it is a data type, I'm just going to say like table of t underscore expand sales order. Okay, and similarly data ls expand sales order equal to like this one. So this is the structure and this is the table which I wanted to send back to the users. Basically it contains sales order header information, and in the sales order and another property called your navigation property, which can be type of table of the sales order item. Okay. So this should be, whatever the navigation property name, this name should be same. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say move corresponding ls header to my structure, since it has include of your sales order header data. Okay. And in the item data, okay, in the item data, read table lt item.
No, not read. You will loop on it, right?
Yeah, sorry. Ls header. Okay, first you will get the header data, then you loop on it.
Yeah. Loop at a LT item.
Yeah, one
And
second,
then
one
you,
second. Yeah, sure. into ls item with key equal to with 1 second.
Where?
For id equal to okay. So you are just going to append. I mean, since you have this item information and in the data type that I mean in the data object that you have created, you have a table type. I mean with the attribute order to items, which is of type table of your sales order item. Okay, so you are just going to say append ls item to this ls expand sales order hyphen order to items. Okay, and I mean once you have all the items added to it, you are going to append the structure
To
to
the table.
the table. Then you are just going to clear this so that you don't have any buffer issues. Okay. Okay. Now you got this. This structure. But what you actually wanted to send is ER underscore entity set, okay, which is of type reference to any data, okay. Once you got this, you got to convert this structure into the entity set. How do you do it? There is a method, in this class, I will show you in which you can use it. You can use this method, copy data to reference. If you look at the parameters, it will just take anything and give you this data. Okay, so we are just going to use this method. Since it is going to be in the same class, I can just use it, pass the IS data and receiving CR data. Sorry. To ref, okay, exporting IS data equal to you are just sending this information and importing CR data equal to this ET and ER underscore entity set. That is what you are going to send back to the user. Okay. Apart from that, you are just going to add that expand clause to. If you look at it, so apart from the entity set you are sending, you are sending the expanded clause to whatever whatever the expand, let's say, since it is implemented to expand other two items, you are just going to send that information back in the et underscore expanded underscore tech underscore clauses. The first one is obsolete. Since you are going to use this one, et underscore expanded underscore tech underscore classes. It is just a string table. So what you are going to do is, you are going to create a data. It's a constant LC. Just going to say expanded tech classes. You are just going to define a constant. Okay. Type string value. Since you are going to implement, since you have written this custom implementation for the expand, for the navigation property or for the expand other two items, you are just going to say back to the user. Okay. And you are just going to add that in the et underscore expanded underscore tech classes. Okay. Append to et underscore expanded underscore tech classes. Okay. It is okay changing. So it is changing. Okay. Okay, let's execute it. We have provided this implementation for the expanded class are the two items. Okay, this should be equal to your navigation property with which you are requesting for expanding the associated entities. Okay.
So if we give any other names, it won't work, is it?
No, you should, even in the structure, you got to give the corresponding thing. Because, let's say whenever you requested, right, this is the information you got. You see the other two items, it is equivalent to navigation property you defined, right? So even in this data object, you should have, the similar name, the same name. And
okay, the case does not matter, right?
yeah, this is just ABAP code, right? It does not matter.
Right. So
Even this one,
even for that, okay.
even this one, right? This one, whatever you are sending it here, this is the expand class that you are requesting for, right?
Mhm.
So it, I mean, this is, I mean, it should be written like this, okay?
Okay.
So let me activate it. And okay, let me put a breakpoint so that we can see what happens inside. Okay, so since I mean, this time we are not going to use the framework expand. Let's see. So it hit the get expanded entity set first. Instead of going to sales orders underscore get entity set method, and for each sales order existed in that sales order entity set, it don't go to the sales order items underscore get entity set method. First it come to the get expanded entity set. Then it checks whether there is a custom implementation for the expanded class it requested for. Okay. Let's say let's look at the information that we are requesting. Let's see the information that we received in the import parameters. Okay, all these are empty, and if we look at the expand, this has some information. If we look at it, okay, it has some children and it has some key properties, right? If you look at it, so if we look at the children, so you see, I mean, the expanded class that we requested, right?
Mm.
So, I mean, when we do this coding, when we send this back, I mean, we say that, okay, this is, I mean, you can, let's say if you send something back, if you, I mean, even if you write all the logic, but if you send something back, it don't recognize that you have provided implementation for that. Okay. So let's look at the expand, and it has key properties too. Okay. So just pay attention to whenever you are implementing a method, whenever you are redefining a method, just pay attention to what has been coming in the import parameters, so that, I mean, you know how to use them. Okay. So let me just, I mean, let me just go one by one. Just, I mean, if we come here, so if we look at this expanded sales order, right? So we have 20 sales orders and its corresponding tables too, if you mean in the order to items type. Okay, if you look at it, it contains all the sales order items. Okay, so this data structure contains all the sales order header information and a table with all the sales order items. Okay, so I just continue it. So this is how, I mean, if you look at it, you received all the sales order header data, and in the order to items navigation property, you received all the sales order items details for that sales order. Okay, any questions in this? Any questions, guys?
No.
Okay, now let's look at the performance statistics just to compare, I mean, whether we brought down some time.
So the URI to request either to use the framework expand or the data provider expand is the same, right?
Yeah,
It just
let's say if you implement the expanded entity set, it goes there. It
yeah,
looks
it
at
goes.
all the expand classes that we mentioned. If it is there, it uses the expanded entity set.
Hmm.
Okay. Otherwise,
Otherwise,
it
it is
come to the
framework.
yeah. It is mainly how you implement in the data provider class, so that mean you can get better result, you can get faster results. Because I mean, when we get the sales order get list itself, we got both the header information and the item information, right?
Right.
In the case of framework expand, we are calling this method, we are calling this function module, and we are going to the sales order items. I mean, let's say if you look at it,
Hmm.
if we look at the sales orders underscore get entity set method, right? First it called this method.
Right.
Here itself you got both sales order header data and sales order item data.
Correct.
But it goes to the sales order items underscore get entity set method, and it calls this function module for all the sales orders that you received in the sales orders entity set, right?
Correct.
So you are calling this function module probably 20 times more,
Right.
whereas you have all the information when you requested in the first function module itself, right?
Correct.
So that is the downside. I mean, I'm just explaining all these things. Basically, whenever when you are doing these productive OData services, I mean, you got to make a call what to implement and what not to implement. Probably sometimes, I mean, you can just go by, I mean, even if it is not fast, but since these OData services are going to be used by desktop and mobile applications, I mean, you get to get it fast. Okay, does it make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, let's just go to the trace just to see whether we made any difference. So let me request this information again so that I can take. So this is the information. So this is the data that I did. Okay, not a lot, but let's say if you have lot of data, let's just make 100. Let's see. I mean, the more amount of information that you are requested for, you will see significant amount of time. I mean, in terms of less time and all. Okay, here it is just like some 150 milliseconds or something. But we can clearly see The second function module we are not calling 20 times. Okay. So yeah, we are just saving around like 150 to 200 milliseconds. Okay. So tomorrow we will see how to implement the expanded entity. Today we looked at expanded entity set. Okay, we will look at how to do the expanded entity. Okay, if you don't have any questions, that is it for today. Since we have just few more minutes.
I have a question,
Okay.
basic question. I mean, maybe I did not understand properly. So the previous exercise, we did navigation property, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we give sales order entity set and you give navigation property. So
Mm-hmm.
in that case, it will give all the corresponding sales order items, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is the difference between expand using expand and navigation property?
Let's say if I don't say expand, right? Let's say if I am requesting for this sales order, okay, now you get only sales order items. You did not get sales order header information, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But let's say when you expand it, let's say if you expand it, it is going to get you the sorry.
It is sales orders or sales order entities.
Yeah, I entered sales orders. One second, I'll show you. Okay, we reached maximum number of sessions. Let's go. We implemented, right? Uh, okay, basically it says row number 1 property name, delivery date. It's okay.
You can probably see it in ST22 also.
Yeah, I think when we include the dates, right? But sales order items or sales order. Okay, I mean whenever there is date, right? You can just say whether it is nullable. Basically, when you see it, row number, property name, delivery date, property value. Where is the delivery date? Okay. It is complaining that this delivery date, I mean, since it is date and time, when we just say it is nullable. Okay. Similarly, on the sales order header data too, whenever there is date and time, let's say we accept that it can be a nullable value. Okay. Since this is a design time change, just regenerate the runtime artifacts. Okay. So just I'm copying it so that I don't need to frame. Okay, I'm loading metadata again. Gateway client. So just going to say, give me sales order items. So, and I'm requesting in the JSON format. So earlier when I asked for, only the navigation property, it just gave me the sales order items. But if you look at it, now it gives me the sales order header information and it gives me all the sales order items associated with that sales order header information. In this case, I'm getting both sales order header data and sales order items data in one request. Okay. Earlier, you need to get sales order header data first, then you request for the sales order items data. But here you requested both the information in one request. Did you get it?
Okay. Yeah. So it is a kind of expansion to navigation property.
Yeah, let's say when you are, let's say if you are getting, if you wanted to display both sales order header data and sales order items in one view, instead of making two requests, you can just make one request and get both the informations, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Similarly, while
but
you are creating also, probably you might create sales order with sales order items information too.
yeah. So in order to use the expand query option, the prerequisite is we got to implement the navigation property, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, even when you practice, look at the data, you receive, look at the data structure. So, since the navigation property is also a property on the principal entity, okay, it gives the property name and it gives, all the sales order items associated with that sales order, okay?
Mm. Yeah.
Hey, Sudhir, can this URI be further extended to even give the product also?
Yes, yes. Let's
Oh,
say if I give item to product, right? So I will just add slash and say item to product. What it will do is it will, for each item, it should give the product too. So if you see the item to product, right? It expanded. It expanded and gave the item to product. Somehow it is not, if you see the data structure, it expanded, right?
mm, right,
We are not getting the details, but it is expanding and giving all those properties, right?
correct.
Yeah, it does. We got to see why it is not giving this information. But if you look at it, let me reduce to, since we are requesting a lot more information, we got to keep breakpoints at different places. Let me just do, okay, this is the sales orders underscore get entity method. I keep a breakpoint here. And next, I come to the sales order items underscore get entity set method.
So, but now because we have implemented the data provider class expand method, will it come here?
Now, if you look at it right, we have implemented, we have implemented,
Oh, we have not implemented get entity,
yeah, get
expanded entity.
expanded entity. Yeah, that's why it comes here.
Right, right, okay.
Okay, come here. So what it will do is it goes to the sales order, get the sales order header information. It goes to the sales order items underscore get entity set method. It gets all the sales order items and it goes to the get product, product underscore get entity for each sales order item. Okay, let me run it. Let me just remove some of them. First it come to the sales orders underscore get entity. Okay.
Right, because we have given only one sales order ID.
Yeah. So let me do F8, continue. It come to the sales order item. Sorry.
Right, get entity set.
Now it comes to the
No,
product.
get entity.
1 second. Oh, so I mean, I mean the breakpoint in the sales order item did not get activated. Sales order items underscore get entity set. Okay, so it comes to the, okay, one second. So since it is item to product, okay, yeah, we got to implement this method in a different way. That's why, okay, one second. What we have done is, I'll just change the order. So we kept breakpoint in all the sales orders underscore items underscore get entity set method. Okay, let me call it again. It come to the sales orders underscore get entity. Okay, let me continue it. Oh, somehow, okay, yeah, let me just execute it. Let's see. Um, it got the other two items. It got the somehow, I mean, it did not hit the breakpoint in the sales order items underscore get entity method. But you see, you will get the sales order item details too. You will get.
But it will not come to sales order item get entity, right? It will come to sales order get item entity set, right?
Yeah, this is where we put, right? Sales order items underscore get entity set, right? It comes to this method.
Right, right.
Yeah. I will check and let you know, but I mean, when you should be able to expand it to the last level as long as I mean you implemented corresponding methods. The framework expand should take care of itself too. I mean, when we included the expand clauses, so basically it go to the other two items. It looks at the navigation property and it knows what is the corresponding method it should call. it should go to sales order items underscore get entity set method. From there, I mean, it looks at item to product and it calls for every sales order item. It goes to the item to product. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So now if you remove that, the sales order ID key that you have given, it should,
Yeah, it should not, because in the expanded entity set we have let's say, let's remove it, right?
oh, how many sales orders have you given?
20, I think.
Okay.
So if you look at it, right, now it gives the sales order items. Yes.
And the products also.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a little bit messy. I mean, it got lot of information which it should not. It should not hit. See, it should actually give, I mean, it should actually give sales order header data and all of its sales order items and the product details, right? But it has
Right, right.
given us, I mean, lots of other details. Something, I mean, wrong with
Hmm.
the product information. I will look at it and let you know. But normally, if you did not implement the expanded entity set, the framework expand will take care. But if you
Right,
did, you got to, I mean, implement it for all the scenarios. Okay.
right.
But
Okay.
to Rajesh, to your question, the expand, I mean, will give you whatever, I mean, the entity that you are requesting. I mean, and together with the entity, it gives you all the corresponding associated entities too.
Okay, yeah,